I think college presidents need to lean into the idea of like, I'm sitting on one of the greatest assets that the internet's going to have in the future, which is live entertainment. Must see TV is
Yeah.
now online. And that is the mindset that Genius is operating in because we're trying to create as much of that as possible, aggregate it, and then make it easier for the colleges and the pro teams to monetize that.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Karen Weaver. There's a real buzz around women's sports today. It's an exciting time to be both a financial supporter and a fan. The growth of interest and passion in college sports is at the edge of exploding, and presidents would be wise to consider the revenue and engagement opportunities available to your athletics programs. My guest today is one of the early leaders in this space of monetizing fandom in women's sports. Josh Walker co-founded the Sports Innovation Lab and created the term the fluid fan, allowing companies to see the overlaps between women's sports fans and their customers. Sports Innovation Lab recently moved under the umbrella of Genius Sports, an internationally known fan activation platform. College insiders might know that the NCAA partnered with Genius Sports to gather data for NCAA championships across all three divisions. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Weaver.
Yes, yes. Josh authored a very insightful article from chapter from my sports finance textbook. I encourage any listeners who have students to check it out. It really helps to lay out the landscape. But Josh is going to talk to you today a little bit about what this landscape means and why it's so important for presidents to understand it. So let's talk about what is monetizing fandom and data activation, and why should presidents and trustees understand this new space?
Well, again, first of all, thank you for having me. Really a pleasure to be talking with you again. I think the business of sports is becoming a new economy for many of the schools, presidents, and folks that you are actually speaking with on this podcast. The opportunity, of course, is as you see more and more of these teams bringing in CEOs, general managers, they're treating it like a business. Well, let's take a step back. What do some of the most successful businesses do? Well, Netflix and Amazon and all the very large companies make most of their money by understanding what their customers are doing. And in marketing, they talk about customer journeys, they talk about repeat visitors, they talk about, cross-selling and upselling those customers. Sports is no different. You're not selling a one-time ticket, you're selling a ticket, you're selling merchandise, you're selling streaming, you're selling a bunch of different products now. And in the world of sports, that's a very important mind shift. It's like we have a portfolio of products and we have a customer journey. It's not just get them in the door, put their butts in seats and sell them beer and hot dogs. So as you start to think about the way that most sophisticated organizations operate, especially in the age of the internet and now with AI, understanding the data that surrounds who your customer is, who your fan is, opens up a lot of new opportunities to cross-sell them, upsell them, and really understand what makes them tick. And that's really what we're talking about when we say fan data.
Okay, that's really helpful. So my listeners will understand that they want to sell tickets to games. It's that transaction, that data exchange is what you're talking about here. Is that correct?
That's partly it. And I think what we spend most of our time with the professional leagues and teams talking to them about is how they've disintermediated themselves from the end consumer. Okay, now that's a big word, but what it really means is they don't have that end relationship. And a lot of colleges don't have that end relationship either. They've either outsourced it to Learfield or they have another ticketing provider that's doing things. They're building their websites, they're building their ticketing platforms, they're collecting those fan signals, who these people are, where they live, how much money they make. They are looking at all that information. The colleges are sometimes one step removed from that. The same way the NFL is removed from Fanatics, the same way the NFL is removed from, Ticketmaster, the same way they're removed from Aramark and Legends, the people that sell us our hot dogs and our beer. That stuff can't continue. You got to have that relationship with the end consumer or you don't learn about who those customers are. So that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about having a relationship with the fan, having a digital touch point so you can collect their information, and then getting their permission to send them follow-on emails, advertisements, products, and services so that that conversation continues well after the ticket is sold.
I think that's a really great explanation because I don't think people think about that last step back to the consumer and how, in some ways, we've forfeited that opportunity to make that connection directly.
Because we sell our rights. In the sports industry, we sell our rights, right? We think of our logo and our colors and our association with the Gamecocks or the Bulldogs or whatever it is. We're like, they want our rights. They want to be able to say they're the official sponsor. Yeah, but once you've given them those rights or once you've given them the ability to communicate directly to the consumer, you've lost that ability.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right. So you're now part of Genius Sports,
We are.
and they wrote in a press release, which I thought was pretty explanatory. They power the global ecosystem connecting sports, betting, and media, combining the most comprehensive official game data with the deepest fan intelligence available. Together, the two companies, your company and Genius, will deliver 360-degree view of the modern fan journey, uniting on-field performance with off-field transactions, unlocking new value and innovation across the global sports ecosystem. Okay, Josh, tell us what that means.
Well, somebody did a pretty good job writing that, but
Okay.
it is pretty high level. Let me break
Yes.
it down for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Sports Innovation Lab was around for 10 years. We obsessed about what customers bought. We thought that buying transactions, the things that you spent your money on outside of sport, would give us a very good understanding of whether or not you were a youth sports parent or you were a pet owner or you were a luxury traveler. And we would start to get a better picture of who the NFL fan is, who the NBA fan is, who the NCAA fan is. And by looking at everything they buy, we could understand them in a way that nobody else could. And for the most part, because sports has been a little bit of a laggard when it comes to consumer data, we really filled a void. We came in and we were able to tell people who their fans were without touching their data because we were collecting all this information from credit cards, debit cards, partners that we had established relationships with. And we built a very clear picture of who these customers are and how they spend their money. What Genius does is very different. They collect a lot of information about who these fans are based on the content they consume, the sports they watch, the athletes they follow, where they bet. So they had what I was missing, which was they have the content and the interest of the fan. I
Okay.
have the purchasing patterns. They have the content. So when you read that language, right, in the press release, what we're really saying is we're trying to combine those two things so that we have the best content, the best media, those sort of really interactive things like the Madden cast I know we're going to talk about in a bit, but like a lot of those overlays and fancy things that you see with next gen stats, that's Genius's world. And then we're the back end to understand everything else that that customer does so that we can try to unify those things to deliver the right personalized experience.
All right. Give me an example. For example, a lot of people turned into the World Series, and I saw stats all over the viewer experience of that. What might they have seen that they would recognize as a next gen stats?
I think let's just pause there.
Okay.
You had a really interesting and new experience with the World Series.
Yeah.
You saw things you didn't see before, you were intrigued, some of it was irrelevant, some of it was interesting. We're all experimenting with that,
Okay.
right? So the difference is in the future, that will be automated.
Okay.
The way you experience that as a viewer, you wouldn't know it wasn't automated. You were like, this is just interesting. They're popping it up now. That is all pre-programmed today.
Okay.
In the production truck, in the production studios, somebody's sitting there going, okay, now show them the stat that shows how far that home run went. Or now cue up the progressive hardest ground ball stat or whatever it is. Those things are all queued up today.
Okay.
What we're really trying to do is figure out how you can do that the same way the internet works, right? If I know you're on the New York Times reading a recipe article, I'm going to give you food and other sort of related content and advertising and promotions to a recipe,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
What happens in a game sometimes dictates how you're feeling.
Well, that's true.
A home run makes you feel a heck of a lot different than an
Yeah,
error by the shortstop.
that's right.
So we're trying to think about like how does emotion tied to the events of the game and then tie to the type of message and promotion that you see. So if you get a really two groups of very simple example. Let's say Georgia's playing Alabama, Georgia wins. The Georgia fans get a very different offer than the Alabama fans who are
Yeah.
feeling miserable,
Okay.
right? But what if you could do that in game where there was like a penalty or a bad call or something like that, and you know which fans are happy and which fans are sad about that?
Right.
Could you instigate that in a very fun way and provide one sort of offer to one fan and another offer to another fan? You could get very creative about this, and I think that's what advertisers are looking for, because live sports is that last premium product where you can do things like this where fans are really leaning in versus like I'm sitting home watching Netflix and I'm leaning back and I'm really not as invested as if the Yankees are about to lose.
Yeah, I gotcha. So this would be through my mobile phone at the game, right? Is that how you
Mobile phone, streaming online, that is the biggest change here, Dr. Weaver. It's like you have the ability now, because this is streaming technology is like the internet. It's through a browser, a smart TV, right? Where you can do things that are smart about who's looking at it versus linear television where you don't know who's in front of the TV.
right, right. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So presidents are used to thinking about athletics as the front porch of the institution. It brings people to campus, gets people excited, brings back old memories of when you were an undergrad on campus, all those things. How might this translate that external kind of, okay, we have to bring everybody to one place, to the individualized experience that we want our fans to have because we want to turn them into active alumni and donors?
I think that's the best example, which is the giving community within college is the most interesting from my perspective. That emotional connection to your alma mater is like the thing that sports does better than anything else. So when you're watching Thursday night football and Amazon's like putting all those things in the corner, send this, promotion to your phone. I now, do you own a pet? Like they're doing all this testing now. That stuff for colleges should be like a sandbox of all kinds of testing. Do we hit people before the game because they're tailgating? Do we hit them after the game because they're feeling really proud their team won? Are we hitting them preseason? Are we hitting them postseason? There's all kinds of very important thinking that universities need to do, colleges need to do. That's marketing strategy, right? I mean, you know these people very well. When have they sat down and said, what's our marketing strategy for giving and how do we integrate that into our sports experience?
We run a
I guarantee you nobody's having that conversation.
we run a commercial during the game. That's what we do. And that's the extent of it, I think.
Right. Right, right. You'll be watching a Purdue game, and in the middle of the game, you see this beautiful ad about like what it's like to be on campus, and you're recruiting students.
Yes.
Where's the giving opportunity, that literally the transactional opportunity for me to scan something and be like, man, it's been a long time since I've given back to Purdue.
Yes. Which happens to be my master's alma mater. So thank you for
There you go. I must have chosen that for a reason.
You did. We just knew. Okay. So this year, Thanksgiving night, there's going to be an interesting experience that maybe perhaps presidents want to check out. Genius Sports is working with NBC Sports, with the NFL, EA Sports, for the EA Sports Madden NFL Cast, a data powered alternate broadcast that merges live football with video game style presentation. The special stream will air exclusively on Peacock when the Baltimore Ravens host the Cincinnati Bengals in prime time on Thanksgiving night, November 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So, might this be a good opportunity for presidents to see how this works?
This will blow their minds. This is this is the extreme of everything you and I are talking about.
Okay.
When you use the term alt casts, nerds like you and me know what we're talking about. Most people don't know what an alt cast is. An alt cast is when you take a live game and you turn it into something else. And there's been some high profile situations where this has been done. The Simpsons did an NFL game where all the characters look like Simpsons characters and they play. But the technology to do this is really sophisticated. You need to be able to do this at a very high speed because you want the action to emulate the real game. So those Simpsons characters needed to run just as fast and do just the same thing that was happening on the live game so that it felt like you were watching the real game.
Right.
What Maddencast is doing is it's very similar. It's trying to overlay the gaming experience that you would have with EA and make it like video game controls. Anybody who's ever played Madden will look at it and go, "Oh, that's how they show the routes and that's how they power up and that's how they show the scoring and all this stuff." It's to make somebody who is a gamer or somebody who's not a gamer to be like, "Oh, I didn't know Madden was like that," or "I didn't know Madden had those features." The reality of like a game and a live game are like merging. But this is a way for a consumer to say, "Actually, I'd appreciate watching that instead of listening to these guys, the old broadcast chirps, commentators over here."
Yeah.
And more of these alt cast Dr. Weaver are going to be made so that you can watch it one way, I can watch it another way, and it'll be optimized for the way we like. Maybe I'm a better, and maybe you have young kids at home and you want to see cartoon characters.
I stumbled on something like this on YouTube a couple years ago when I was watching baseball in the summertime. I don't know why, but it was engrossing, particularly if I was a young kid. I would likely watch that more often than I might the regular game just because I can relate to those cartoon-like characters.
And that's what the industry's trying to figure out, right? Does that make you as a young kid become a fan? Big question, huge
Yeah.
question. Does it make you watch the whole game? Also a very large question.
Yeah.
Or does it just create a really good content library for short form content, which you can snip up and put on social media where the kids are?
Right.
So those are the big open questions that college, sports needs to answer as well, which is like, who are we trying to reach? What alt cast really appeals to our viewers? And let's start testing and learning because the future is this. Like, you will have multiple versions of the Georgia Alabama game
Yeah.
to reach different types of consumers, children, alumni, current students who might want to see their friends, it's going to be very different.
Yeah, see their friends in the fans in the stands. I was amazed at how realistic the fans were. I mean, it really
100%.
could have been people that I know.
And you know what really accelerated all that was COVID. Yeah,
Okay.
COVID had to do a lot of that virtual watch room simulation, crowd noise, and so it really put a lot of that stuff on steroids.
So Gen Z is obviously what presidents are focused on now with trying to attract them to come to campus. We got Gen Alpha, I think, coming next. So we know this is where they're going to be. Should presidents start thinking about trying to create partners with companies that can create this kind of content to put on the school colors to make people feel excited about being a member of the Boilermaker clan or the Gopher clan? What do you think? What should they be thinking about this?
I don't If I were sitting in front of that audience, and I am right now, I wouldn't advise them to get too deep into the media.
Okay.
What I would say is own your data,
Okay.
meaning own your audience. Make sure any deal you're doing includes the ability for you to get more information back. Don't just sell your broadcast rights. And some of the schools don't have right, like maybe it's at the commissioner level, right? Like at the commission level. But if you're part of the Big Ten, if you're part of the pack, whatever, it's like, like those schools need to be aware of what the data flow looks like. Who is centralizing that information? And how are they, because they invest millions and millions of dollars into their football program or into their gymnastics program or whatever it is, are they learning about their gymnastics fans? And if they can sit at a table and go, yes, we're getting that information, then they're in control.
Okay.
If they're sitting at a table and they look around and they are staring at each other and they're like, "Where is that data? Where's that information?" Then they're not in control, and that's a scary place to be. And I can tell you 95% of them are not in control.
Okay.
They are not getting the signals that let them know who is watching the Purdue Boilermakers on a Sunday afternoon and what are they interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And that's the critical question. This other stuff, this all cast stuff, it's fun, it's exciting,
Yeah.
but they won't have a lot of control over that. They absolutely should have control over their student data, their alumni data, and their fan data.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's a really good distinction for presidents to understand. Now, the partnership with the NCAA involves the postseason event. So there's 90 postseason events. Can you offer us insight into why that was a valuable thing for the NCAA to partner with Genius Sports on?
Yeah, I mean, I think Charlie Baker at the highest level is trying to make the NCAA a much friendlier consumer brand,
Okay.
right? Normally, they did what I explained earlier. They sell their rights to CBS, and CBS ran March Madness, and off I went. I think they're realizing that their bargaining and their negotiating powers to understand who their fans are better. So they came to us because largely we can expand the amount of data that those other sports, the non-football, the non, big sports can now have the same level of sophistication, the same level of data, the same level of live stats that the larger sports do. And that's really and Genius's mission in a nutshell, which is to create premium content wherever sports being played, not just the biggest events on the screen. And that way you learn about who is the, rowing, fan, who is the gymnastics fan, who is the volleyball fan. Those other sports are really critical to figuring out like where you have critical mass in the market.
So, for example, former field hockey player, I seem to bring this up in every podcast
Sure.
known to mankind.
That's okay.
Today's the
Why don't you brag a little bit? Like, how good were you?
I was pretty good, but today's the semifinals. So we have in Division One, we have Princeton, Harvard, and we have North Carolina, Northwestern. I'm watching that game on ESPNU. What happens to that data, and how would they find me?
Yeah. So if you're watching it on NBC, I'm sorry, ESPNU, you have an ESPN subscription. Now, either ESPN has your data or Comcast or Verizon has your data, whoever your, internet provider is. Those are the things that we're talking about, right? Like the schools don't have your data,
Okay, not
right?
yet.
Everybody else will. They have your eyeballs. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how does, I think you said Harvard and Princeton, and how do they know who's watching?
Right.
Because what they usually get is very lame. It's like 400,000 people tuned in.
That's it. We don't know male, female, young, old.
Rich, poor, urban, rural, we don't know.
Right.
But
Okay.
ESPN knows or somebody else knows, and that's where this, like, community of sharing data and learning about each other's customers is really important for sports.
I do see this as the next frontier. I mean, I don't think there's any way we can ignore this trend and everything. So I know presidents are going to be concerned because we hear a lot about sports betting scandals recently, and they're concerned about sports betting on their campuses.
And they
How
should
does
be.
this impact? Yeah, how does this impact that whole thing?
Well, again, I think the more that we can create premium content, the less we're focused on monetizing the better. And I think what sports went through with the fantasy stuff moving to sports betting and the legalization of it, that was the first way that they finally found a way to make money off of sports that wasn't sponsorship, ticket sales, concessions, etc.
Okay.
I think what's coming next is what we call the premium internet. And I this is a really big idea, but I'll try to explain it quickly. The premium internet is very much like cable television, where you have the local news and QVC and all of these like programs that not a lot of people watch anymore. And then you have Paramount Plus and Netflix. What do customers pay for? Paramount and
So
Netflix.
Netflix, yeah.
The internet is going to move in that direction. All these crappy websites, these blogs, these spammy sites, these banner ads, they're all going to get relegated to the far edges of the internet. And the only thing that's going to exist is the thing that you can charge money for. And the premium internet will exist around live sports because live is the only thing that AI can't scrape.
Okay.
AI can go around and scrape everything else, every Wikipedia page, every New York Times article, but you have to watch the game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think college presidents need to lean into the idea of like, I'm sitting on one of the greatest assets that the internet's going to have in the future, which is live entertainment. Must see TV is now online, right? And that is the mindset that Genius is operating in because we're trying to create as much of that as possible, aggregate it, and then make it easier for the colleges and the pro teams to monetize that information.
I think you're right. I think sports is the most valuable property in the world. It's the most valuable business in the
That's
world.
why the rights keep going up. You and I, as like industry watchers, are like, how much more will they pay for the?
No.
And they keep paying more.
I know, I know. I mean, you probably heard about the potential deal with the Big 10 private equity, private credit, and people say 2.4 billion is undervalued. And that's so it's just it shows that presidents have gotta look ahead, lean in a little bit more into this space and not be afraid of it because it's coming whether they want it to or not.
Yes, I think the horse is well out of the barn on whether or not the college sports is a product and a business and it is no longer an educational thing. Like nobody can look you in the eye and say, this is not big business.
Yeah.
Private equity, to your point, it's coming in. The schools are going to be immediately in the have and have nots, and you need capital and you need to hire from the outside. The other thing is hire from the outside. Go get yourself some people that have worked at Coca-Cola, that have worked at Procter and Gamble, and like know how to do marketing and really think creatively about this asset that you're holding on to. It will fuel the rest of your university. You can still be like emotionally driven for educational purposes, but take advantage of the biggest asset that you have. You always have, but now this is the way to do it going forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We've done too much siloization in higher education. Academics is over here, sports is over there. We have to understand that this is one of our greatest assets, but we can't just spend all of our money on it. We have to realize that there's a whole ecosystem that's built around it that can help us support all of our sports, not just one or two.
And amen to that.
Amen to that. Josh, thank you so much for
You
joining the
got it.
podcast.
Anytime, Dr. Weaver. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
Take care.